welcome to Discussions of Music, Healing, and Consciousness with your hosts Chris Noble and Bill Perotzman. On this podcast, Chris and I offer a spontaneous, ongoing conversation about how music is intertwined with healing and consciousness. We hope this podcast will cultivate your knowledge and curiosity, inspire your own study and practice of the musical and healing arts, and that your contribution to advancing world consciousness will be satisfying for you and transformative to those around you. Let's get started. The setup on this is so amazing. And I still remember this night when I took the 40 hertz plunge, right? And I'm saying it that way for all the people who are into ice baths and such things. So Chris has recorded some 40 hertz music, and it's really fascinating to me why you did that. So let's begin there.
Yeah, thanks, Grandpa. Basically, that's all my grandfather. So when he was on this physical plane in our earthly reality, he for the last, I'd say, 5-ish years of his life suffered from Parkinson's, which is a neurological disorder. For those that don't know, very similar to Alzheimer's. Memory loss. Start to not even recognize your own kids, cognitive, the usual, also physical. Sometimes just eating, was challenging. So it's really rough. Like all those neurological disorders, they really wreak havoc, and it's challenging for everyone, the person, of course, experiencing, and for the family, because my God, your memory is a lot of your identity. And when that starts to go, I mean, just watch The Notebook or something like that, and it'll immediately show you the emotional aspects that come with these things. So I have a major emotional charge, I think, around neurological disorders specifically. And so at the time I was obsessing over how can I, as a musician who has a bit of a specialty in the therapeutic side of composing music, what could I do? Is there anything I can do? And so I went online and I looked around and I found a TED Talk, actually, from a Canadian academic, actually from my hometown of Toronto. The University of Toronto had done really interesting research and talked about it at his TED Talk all around 40 hertz. And now he did 40 hertz for Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, and those, I think, 3 or 4 classic neurological disorders. And what he did was a small study. It really needs to be expanded upon, FYI. But
yeah, I agree. It's so important.
We need more of this, basically, is what I'm trying to say. But anyway, it was a solid study. And what he did was he actually had a customized chair, kind of like a chair that you sit on at the dentist office, but he built it with speakers built inside of the entire chair. So what he did was he actually pumped the frequency of 40 hertz, 40 oscillations of a sine wave per second, essentially, low, for those that aren't familiar too much with what certain frequencies sound like. 40 hertz is very low. Think of it like
didn't we decide it was like a low E at one point?
I want to say D, but it's either that, it's a low D or a low E.
Pretty low.
Very low. It's like a note you might hear in a really trancy dance song, or like it's deep, very subby bass tone. So he pumps that through this chair and also through speakers that you would listen. And I think eventually he later actually got into visual stimuli and showing 40 hertz on a screen. So 40 flashes on the screen might sound a little bad for anyone who's epileptic, because it's kind of seems a little stroby. But anyway, that was his whole experiment. So what happened was he would pump the sound 40 hertz through the chair, through the speakers, and they would absorb it with their body and their ears, essentially. And what he found was that their neurological disorders didn't get, per se, healed necessarily, which is, you can't really even say that in the medical world, anything, I think, legally. But anyway, or cured. You can't, not allowed to say cure or something like that. But anyway, he didn't have that, but these people that he was experimenting on, it seemed to stop deterioration. So in other words, it did seem to plateau the effects of the deterioration of their brain. In other words, it stopped it getting any worse.
Yeah,
so that's
I see what you're saying.
pretty amazing. So what would happen again if we could bring this into people's lives well before they get into advanced Alzheimer's? Maybe this would be part of that, process to help people not have to get even to that. It's like in cancer, if you can catch it in its first stage, per se, you have a much better chance.
Yeah,
right?
the the possibilities are greater. So how did it work for Parkinson's? Did he do any?
Yeah, so he did the same for Parkinson's, and it was the same results. So basically, after this experiment with Dr. Lee Bartel, that's I believe is his name, and it's a great TED Talk. Check it out, people. It's actually on my song, the 40 Hertz song. We'll put in the description of the show today. If you check out that song that I wrote on YouTube, his whole research and TED Talks is in my description. So I reference him. You can click it there and check it out. So then the next part of the story is basically this research blew my mind. I had to, I was like, okay, 40 hertz.
Yeah.
I took my tone generator, generated a 40 hertz sine wave. And it was a cool sound because I was like, again, it's like a cool sub bass. So I was like, okay, this could be a cool drone. I could have this drone throughout the song, which for those that don't know, it just means that same 40 hertz is going to happen forever and ever and ever throughout the whole song. It never changes. And I wrote the song around that, or the piece around that. And then what happened was it's become my most popular piece on my YouTube channel by quite a bit. Quite a noticeable gap from everything else. So there's like something happened with this piece, and what two things happened with this piece. One, which was kind of the going joke for quite a while, and I know Bill, this is what you experienced, was that it knocks you out and puts you to sleep.
Oh yeah, totally put me to sleep. The most beautiful. I didn't want to. When it ended and I kind of came awake, I didn't want to get up. I just wanted that to go on for a long, long time.
Deep slumber.
Deep slumber.
And that's cool. And I love that that's a side effect. Great side effect. So that's one note that came out of this.
So you're saying that along with that, it would have slowed any neurological, well, not neurological disorder. That's the wrong way of saying it, but
any brain deterioration, though.
Yeah, it stops brain deterioration.
Right. I mean, there's so many other things that are not good for our brains that all of us are experiencing. So there are benefits, and that's where this story kind of comes in because it, I got a whole other story literally 2 days ago that showed me a whole other side to 40 hertz. So we have had episodes where I talked about the sleep and the relaxation and even some of the neurological stuff. But this episode, we're going to get into 40 hertz for how it's helped coma patients.
So, my gosh, actual, like in a coma, you can play 40 hertz for people, right?
Yeah, and after the coma, when they've come out of it and they have obviously, when you've kind of been a vegetable for a while, your brain sometimes can't fully recover. So what happened in my story, and I'll give you the full rundown in a second, but basically what happened was this person came out of a 10-day coma, and I'll tell you the story of how my music was able to help them basically get their memory back. And I'm not saying
so cool.
I'm not saying this because, this is Chris's opinion. This is my friend, and I'm just regurgitating the story of what she told me. So basically what happened was a month and a bit ago, I won't say any names, no details. They don't really matter anyway for the sake of the story. Keep my friend, anonymous. But essentially my friend was going through a very challenging time a couple of months ago, and her partner actually had a life-threatening, her partner's my age, they're both my age. I'm 35, just so the audience knows, like young, healthy, should not be in the ICU for a long period of time. And her partner was. And I don't even know the specifics, but basically what ended up happening was he was in such a life-threatening state, they actually had to put him into an induced coma. And the induced coma lasted for 10 days. And after the 10 days, he came out and he was not himself. And he was extremely distraught and confused. And I mean, the poor guy, like, couldn't remember anyone. He couldn't remember his girlfriend, my friend. He couldn't remember really. It would come back a little bit, but then it would be gone. And just to like, I can only imagine what that would feel like. I literally can't.
Yeah, this is so. I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm just because I'm curious. No medical advice here or anything, but I'm curious if the coma is what caused this memory loss, or if the thing that happened to him other than the coma is what caused the memory loss. Like, do they know the cause?
Yeah, I
have no idea.
Have that much information on the medical side of it, to be honest. And I'll maybe find more from my friend, but it was a big thing for them, and I think they weren't either at a place to like get into details per se, but they really just wanted to share their story. So what happened? Was he got out of the 10-day coma, couldn't remember much. Really challenging for people. And then my friend, she had asked me like a month or two ago, to send me some of my music, and thoughts and prayers as well, which do help, of course, absolutely. That is certainly a thing that definitely makes a difference too. But yeah, I sent her some of my music. So anyway, a couple of days after this, her partner had come out of the coma. She got this intuition to be like, I should put one of that one of Chris's songs on again, just for whatever. So she puts the 40 hertz piece on. Within about half an hour, she hears her partner just say like, "Hey, babe," like her pet name kind of thing to her. And, just the way he said it, she knew he was back. Like she knew he had come back from wherever in the ethers he was previously. And she kept playing. This was about half an hour into the song. I think she turned it off for a bit because the song is only for 2 hours anyway. It ended. While she noticed while it was ending, some of the memory started to slip though. And then she put it back on and it came back again.
Like
Yeah.
turning up the volume.
She experimented with like, was the track on or not on? When it wasn't on, a little more deterioration would start to happen again. But then when the track was on, it was okay. And again, I don't have specific details with exactly how she was doing this, but the fact of the matter was that she said it was clear as day. The music was having the impact more than anything else. It was the music. And it reminded me again of another episode we talked about a while back when Stranger Things season 4 had come out.
Right.
And there's that classic scene with,
running up that hill,
getting her to leave a very evil dimension of reality. Yeah. That song was her lifeline. I could not help but feel similar parallels with the 40 hertz music and this gentleman trying to come out of a 10-day coma. Similar, like, where does your mind go, right? Where does your consciousness go in coma? It's probably elsewhere. So where, how does it, so this music, this 40 hertz, I think there's something there. It brought him back into his conscious being, his body, basically
realigned or something.
Realigned something. The neural pathways got reconnected. The memory started to like come back again.
How's he doing now? Is he like back to normal, or is he still in this?
Tune in next time, guys. I'll get an update. I'll ask my friend. I got this earlier in the week from her, and I am so grateful, but I didn't want to push. You know what I'm saying? Because
no, I hear what you're saying. I get it.
Still pretty tender right now.
Hey, if you're out there and listening to us right now, first of all, thank you for your story. So glad that there's been an improvement of some kind, and definitely hope that it remains permanent. And wow, just wow, Chris.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
I was very emotional listening to it myself, and not at all from an ego, and it really isn't ego.
No, I get it. It's just, wow, look at this thing that happened. Right?
You're amazed. I still couldn't fully believe it, even though I totally believe in the power of sound and music. You're still kind of just caught off guard a bit, Yeah,
and when it happens, it's like, I would feel really remiss if we didn't play 40 hertz for people, if you're listening right now. So you can actually experience what this sounds like. Now, this is not Chris's music. This is just the tone of 40 hertz.
Yeah.
And it's not the Schumann resonance, just in case you're wondering. Schumann resonance is at 7 point something.
It's actually different.
And it's changing, right? And this is 40. So divide 40 by 7 and you'll find out, where the Schumann resonance gets you. But can we do that? Just play a little bit of it? It's like,
of course we can. Yeah.
It's kind of hard to hear, but, I'll hit it and see what happens.
Sure. Let's do it.
Okay. So right now it's just like a low rumble. I'll up the volume a bit.
You have to crank it.
So that higher tone that you heard there, whoa.
Oh, I hear a real low rumble.
Yeah. And it's messing with our mics too.
Yeah.
You can do this with a thing called online tone generator. Just like look for that and you'll be able to play with it. But
headphones are the best, FYI, for low frequencies, everyone. Because your phones can't quite hit that.
Can't quite hit that low. And the headphones will help you hear it.
Yeah.
And we're going to link in your music, man, because I want people to be able to get to the music that your friend was using. And that helped me sleep, and just all these other wonderful. It's there. It's 2 hours long. It'll be the best 2 hours you've ever had in your life. No, I better not say that.
What a great free testimonial here.
Really?
It's like, again, it's interesting because, I also got to wonder where the difference lies. It's like, I know there's something with 40 hertz clearly, and I've been told this by a lot of other people, so I'm just going to regurgitate what I've been told, is that the music that I also write, much like yourself, Bill, and a lot of other composers that are just composers that are clearly in it because they love it, and we are, we're in our alignment. We're here just kind of channeling, like, little, basically, like, music is the universal language. So that's really all we're doing, and I think that is the other side, is the musicality. Not the musicality from how technically good is it, more just the soul.
Yeah, the soul of the music.
Soul feeling, the emotion that you are also putting into the piece. I feel like there's something there too. And all the harmonics that your music creates, that's another element, because 40 hertz has its own. I've heard a lot of things about if you're doing the one frequency thing, it's not enough, because nothing in reality exists as a solo frequency. Everything has nuance and harmonics anyway.
Yep. Totally.
Right? Yep. So I think and we've talked about this in a lot of episodes, when we're dealing with specific frequencies, I think it's in conjunction with music that it has to have that magical
sure.
Almost.
40 hertz is a great one to use, because 40 hertz is like the resonating frequency of a lot of kick drums or taiko drums or whatever. It's that low sound. And when you hit one of those drums, it changes the experience of 40 hertz from being a sustained kind of glide to being an upregulated moment. And then there's nothing, and then it hits you again, like if it's a kick drum, over and over. And that kind of kick is a upregulator, and the sustained glide is the downregulator. It's the same number of hertz. It's just the way it's used. And you're so right to tie it into music, because if what you're looking for is that sustained glide, you're going to want music that stays with that sustained glide. Otherwise, you're starting a rave or something if you're using 40 hertz as a kick drum. It's a completely different experience.
Yeah. And I can't tell you how many people have, also when they go online and they look, I'll just say binaural beats, check them out.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
People will be like, I don't like them because they're so sounding. And I'm like, right, because you've probably found the binaural beats that are just the binaural.
Just the beats, yeah.
I'll never do that. I have to put it with some music and some nature ambience, or
it's got to work.
Mix it in with stuff, because I don't want to listen to it either.
Yeah.
Just as the frequency.
The best way for experiencing a binaural beat, if you've never done one before, is just to get out in nature. Particularly if you've got crickets or cicadas. We're recording right now very close to the giant cicada, whatever they call it, the thing that happens every 49 years or some crazy.
Oh.
Anyway, really? All the cicadas come out of the ground in the Southwest down here.
Right.
Millions, billions of them. And they start chirping, right? And the binaural beats that come from that kind of an environment, crickets, cicadas, even birdsong, raindrops. If you're able to listen to a rainstorm, there's a binaural beat associated with that. These are great ways of getting an idea. But the embedded music you're talking about is so much better, because the beat's there. And as long as you've got headphones, you're going to experience that. But the beat's there, and the music gets you distracted enough to enjoy it.
and can get you the result you're looking for, right? Because it's
totally, yeah.
I was actually last night even listening through some of my other meditation music, just for, I don't even know why, it just kind of happened. And I was going through some really old stuff I'd done for another client, and that I can't release to the public because of copyright and all that. And I'm like, holy cow, I was trying some solfeggio ones, right? With the what's the third eye solfeggio? It's like 956 or something. Like,
yeah, that sounds right. 928, 900, whatever it is. It's high.
You those of you watching, listening, go look it up for us. Do us a favor.
I can go to my own website and look. I just
I'm lazy. I'm just too lazy in this episode to pull it up. But something in the third eye solfeggio frequency. You can look this up, no problem, people. Basically, I listened to that song, and again, because once we can get with intention in the music, you can use the music for the intention along with the frequency. So when I wrote a song for the third eye activation with the solfeggio frequency, the music I wrote with it was extremely galactic and third eye, like otherworldly sounding. So it kind of got me there emotionally, much like you would watching, I don't know, a movie, and a great score makes you feel a particular emotion in a particular scene. The meditations are kind of, I feel like, supposed to do the same thing. So
right, they should.
You got the hertz, but what's the emotional musical accompaniment?
I had that same experience. I'm working on a series of these. When I recorded my first chakra album, so picking a note for each one of the chakras. Now that's a problem because some people think that the notes for the first chakra start on A, and some think they start on C.
No, it's not musically.
It's like whatever, but I just use the C scale. So I did C through B, and every advance in the chakras, the more they got toward the top, the weirder the music got. So that by the time I hit B, which is the last one in that particular series, it was spacey.
Which is supposed to be, right?
It was supposed to be. It just happened normally happened that way. And I wasn't sitting there thinking about, this. I wasn't doing the whole meditative kind of thing. I just said, okay, we're going to do the first chakra now. And what music came? Second chakra, what music came? What third? And I just did all 8 of them. It took a little while. But it was just like a spontaneous trip through each of the energy centers in the chakra system. And the music aligned somehow.
Because you weren't thinking, I think.
Probably. Yeah, probably because I wasn't thinking. I'm becoming really good at not thinking, people, just so you know.
We're professional not thinkers.
We are out of our heads.
As musicians, you got to get really good at not thinking.
Oh, man. Okay, this is getting punchy. I want to say just one more time, Chris, how amazing that the feedback you got was, so positive around this 40 hertz music that you've made. More people need it. I just hope it gets out there bigger.
Here's an idea it gave me too, Bill. And this is something where I see, your music and a lot of other musicians coming into play where I'm like, okay, what about, and I remember from another relationship like 10 years ago, my partner at the time, her grandmother was in the ICU and I spent some time there as well. And, ICUs around the world, I can imagine, are all not great places that people want to be. And hospitals in general, I don't know anyone that's ever said, I love going to the hospital. No one likes the hospital. They're horrific environments, I think. They're not conducive to healing, in my personal opinion. Conducive to feeling terrible and fear-based, I think. I don't feel good at a hospital ever. So why couldn't we start to establish frequencies, general frequencies in hospitals that could help, recovery? There's frequencies that help tissue recover. So if you've got an open wound, pump those frequencies into the room of that patient. We just proved if you're coming out of a coma, maybe you want to put some 40 hertz into that room. What else if you've gone through maybe more of a emotional challenge and it's landed you in the hospital because of a panic attack or something?
Yeah.
Oh, we got frequencies for that.
Yeah, bring on Metallica, and
whatever. But whatever works, and
whatever works, right?
And why couldn't that become a thing where it's like each patient has like a speaker zone, and that wouldn't even cost that much, right? Headphones, little speaker playing.
Yeah, RF headphones are cheap. Everybody can have their own channel, just playing the music that they need.
These are easy solutions, guys, and I know. There's not enough clinical research. Then do the clinical research.
Yeah, they flip and get off your dime.
I know anecdotally this works.
So there's a little bit there. There's some. I'm going to call it clinical because it happened in a clinic, but just for listeners, in case you're wondering. So there's a guy named Dr. Claudius Conrad. We may have talked about him before. He's a surgeon and he's a classical piano player.
Nice.
And when the research was done, which he did himself at Mass General or something like that in Boston, he took patients in the ICU, which, as you pointed out, is a terrible place.
Yeah.
And he decided in one group to play Mozart for them, just recordings of Mozart, didn't specify what. And the other group, a control group, he left them with nothing. And he was able to notice some differences in the Mozart ICU people, which most of the time is like, imagine yourself in the ICU. You have no effect. You're kind of like laying there, maybe in a partial coma, Yeah. So you're doing nothing. There's nothing actively about you that is engaged in doing anything. It's just lying there. So what he noticed, this is really amazing stuff. The Mozart people needed half the pain meds of the other people, half, 50%. That's a huge number for people in the medical profession, half the pain meds. They had a 20% decrease in 2 stress hormones that we can measure. Decrease of stress just by listening to Mozart or music. But the most important thing that happened, as amazing as all that is, the most important thing that happened was there's this thing called pituitary growth hormone. So if that's going up, you're healing faster. All right. So having increased pituitary growth hormone in the ICU is a good thing. Okay. It went up for the Mozart people. It did nothing for the others. So listening to music in the ICU, as you've said, they have measurable effects. Half the pain meds, 20% decrease in 2 stress hormones, increased healing. Just listening to music, right? Dr. Claudius Conrad, Mass General, he's got papers on this and out there. He still plays piano. Understand he's a pretty decent piano player too. So he talks about this whole thing. And that research is 14 years old now.
Yeah, I love that you shared that, Bill. It just brought something up for me now quickly, because you're right. When I was looking at PubMed and stuff for any kind of studies around sound, healing of any kind, right? Frequency, not much, but a lot of things in the kind of the ICU areas of hospitals and stuff were coming out. And there's I'm on my website because I grabbed this and put it on there. Dr. Mona Lisa Chanda, she's part of it was just written in Trends in Cognitive Sciences journal.
I know her. I know of her. I don't know her personally, but
okay.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Really good stuff. She says music improves the body's immune system function and reduces stress. It's actually more effective than prescription drugs in reducing anxiety before they go into surgery. So she was doing a study specifically for people with anxiety going into surgery.
Yep.
Like just anxiety towards the surgery. And they used music to not only, I guess, improve or reduce stress, but improve their immune system as well before the surgery. So again, there is stuff out there.
Oh yeah, big time. And it's so practical. It's so common sense. And because there's no side effects, it's like, hey, Chris, you're about to go in for some operation. Man, what would you like to be listening to right now?
Right.
Oh, okay. Here's the headphones. Here's the playlist. You're going to be under in about 10 minutes anyway. It doesn't have to be a long playlist. But why not send you in, right?
Yeah. Well, it puts your body in more homeostasis, which obviously only helps healing. So
why not, right?
Logical, guys.
Hospital administrators around the world. This is where the value of music is going to come back, everybody. When we start to realize how integral it is to our healing and to our well-being and to our mental health and memory and just all the other things.
Yeah, I want to be a part of a movement where musicians and composers are getting contracted in by hospitals and the healthcare, industry.
Yeah,
even pharmaceuticals. I don't like any of that stuff. I think can all, maybe not pharmaceutical, kind of an antidote to pharmaceuticals, but what I'm saying. I feel like every industry in the health sector could benefit, from music. You just got to look into it, and yes, it is gonna push some things out maybe, but where it loses some industries money, it's also going to save a lot of other industries money if we're going to look at it purely from a financial standpoint here.
Sure. Plus, it's going to increase the value of the creations of people who compose like you.
Well, it becomes a job that's way more than entertainment now, which is beautiful already. But I've always felt that as musicians, we're not just here to make a nice sounding piece of music for you to dance to, which is great. And I'm not at all taking away from that. That needs to be there. But I also, I can't see why, like, Bill wouldn't get hired to perform at the main lobby of a hospital that then gets projected around the PA system throughout the hospital,
right?
Because everyone benefits,
right? Okay, this is a tag on the story, but I volunteer with our local Military Veterans Administration. Department of Veterans Affairs has hospitals for military veterans, and the one that's closest to me has a small grand piano at the sort of T intersection where the main hallways cross on the ground floor, right? And it's been there for a few years. And back in the day, there used to be somebody came in and played it. I think he was so old that he probably passed away.
Wow.
It's been shoved further and further into its corner, and now it has signs around it, and they don't even let the automatic player play very loud. They have the thing turned down so low that you hear about every seventh note. And most of the time when I've been there recently, it's just been off. It turned off. And of course, this is the very same hospital where I led a Guitars for Vets chapter. Veterans using guitar to deal with post-traumatic stress symptoms, right?
Awesome.
They're having this great experience. The piano in the lobby is turned off. I'm completely with you on this, brother. What are we thinking?
Like, come on.
What does it cost to have a little piano music? Even if it's a piano player, by a player piano, what am I trying to say? Disc clavier, something like that, right?
Like, why couldn't we even have that? My grandmother's old age home, ever since COVID now, won't play the automatic piano. It's not even a person coming in, God forbid. No, it's not even that. It's just an automatic piano. And every time I go and visit, I'm like, the same thing. I'm like, it's accumulating dust. It's a very expensive piece of furniture.
Yeah.
and it's not doing any of its purpose here. And again, you just plug it in and press play, guys, like, and let that music just, like, if that was happening in the lobby of the old age home, everyone hears that every day when they come down for breakfast and they do their this and their that. And it's, if it was just always happening, I would love to know statistically what would be changing for people. But my heart and my soul know that it's going to be good. Just do it.
Just do it. It's necessary.
Music.
And thank you to our guest from a few episodes ago who actually does this and has figured out how to sponsor musicians in homes for old people, like, old age homes and nursing homes. We'll link that episode too. So if you're a musician, you want to do this work, it's so much better when there's a live person there. I got to tell you, it's just so much better.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, as much as I love messing with a player piano, but I'm not your average bear, right? It's so much better to see a live musician there.
Yeah. Bias as a musician, of course.
Yeah, slightly biased,
But
plus,
I hear that from a lot of people. A lot of people think that way too. It's nothing like the real thing, of course. And
yeah,
you're right. Our one of our previous guests was great with that. And I think this is, to be honest, the last month for me, I've been actually actively applying now for jobs as a composer to the therapeutic industries. So
nice. Yes.
I've actually started reaching out to meditation apps, breathwork companies, which now exist, and the psychedelic realm of things. So ketamine therapy in the U.S.
Yep.
As well as, of course, MDMA with PTSD, psilocybin, and a whole bunch of other stuff. It's interesting. I'm applying for jobs in this sector, but the jobs don't exist. So what I'm doing is I'm messaging the companies because they clearly need the service.
Yep.
It's already in their product, essentially. Or in these therapies, all of them are laying down with headphones, presumably listening to something. But maybe that thing is a preset playlist that they don't have control over. Maybe they want more custom music, which most people are moving in that direction anyway.
Yep. Everything's branded,
Yeah. Any musicians listening to this, especially the composers, I'll keep you guys updated on this pursuit, because I personally believe in 2024 right now, we're recording this in the spring or summer or whatever of 2024, May. It's like, I have never seen more opportunity for composition for music in the health sectors and the therapeutic sectors. This is like ever since I think COVID, it really opened up a lot more of that. And now corporate worlds, I mean, the big words are wellness and mindfulness now in the corporate world. So
and music is a great transportation to get there.
Hell yeah.
I'm really curious to follow that up, because I wonder how AI will compete there. I was thinking about the player piano thing, and the player piano is a novelty. Let's face it. An actual person sitting there is not a novelty.
Yeah.
That's something we can relate to. So I'm wondering how, in the world of composing for therapeutic purposes, will AI get a toehold there? Or do we need to have something that is more human, because we're talking about human health?
I gotta go with the human,
Me too. I mean, I'm down with the human thing. I don't think AI, and I'm not a real big proponent of apps like Calm and whatever, but they're helping people, and that's fine with me. But is an AI generated therapeutic music measurably different from a human generated therapeutic music?
I mean, I don't know, of course.
How do we know?
But how do you even grade that?
Music therapy, if you're listening.
I want to say, because I've looked at Calm, they're such a big company that I'm like, I haven't really bothered with them, but I do look at, I actually started using them like 8 years ago or something. And that's started to help me on my journey with meditation.
Yeah.
Grateful for that. I don't know if they generate their music through AI. I think they hire composers.
I would, if given the preference, I would want a human composer behind the music I listen to.
Right? And I think most people would, right?
Right. It's something we need to think as listeners. We need to think about that. But that's a whole other podcast. Which we will do.
Yeah, we will. But it's fun, and I love this. I think it's just really exciting to see how just stories and anecdotes, but now real life things are really starting to open up, and it's never been more exciting. And I don't know where it's going. Nothing's landed, nothing's concrete yet, but I'm like, it's going somewhere. Something's changing. We're evolving.
Something's changing. It's out there.
Cool. Yeah.
Consciousness is changing.
Well, that's for sure.
Because music and healing certainly are.
Absolutely. So, hey, everybody, go check out Bill's Chakra Music. Is that on Spotify?
I think It is, yeah.
It
It
is.
hits all the major streamers, so it's distributed. If you're listening through CD Baby, thank you, CD Baby. Derek, love you, man. Um, so CD Baby pushes it out to like Apple Music and
so it's everywhere.
Google and Play or whatever. It's every place. So Spotify.
Beautiful. So just type in Bill Protzman with I don't know, whatever you listen to, Apple, Spotify, and I highly recommend, guys, because Bill's brilliant and he's got that amazing soul that comes through the music as well. And it's going into every chakra. So great way. There's many ways to go through it. One of my favorite ways to move through chakras with the music and the meditation is to really just like, I sometimes even physically put my hand on where the area. So it's your root, back of the spine.
So you activate the
Physically, feel where it is, feel the frequencies moving in that area, bring your attention there, meditate there with an intention of any kind that you want. If you're familiar with chakras and what each one represents, you can really work with that energy. But use Bill's music or other music, of course, whatever resonates with you. But that's the beautiful thing, right? Is you start to find music that will work for all these different things. It's like you can apply it to anything.
Do your breath work too. I like to have music with a pulse.
Yeah.
And so the pulse varies between the various different chakras. So you vary the breath or your tempo of whatever pattern of breathing you like to do.
Absolutely. Or you listen to a guided breathwork track. And when I write them for my clients, we get really into the details of like, okay, during the hold, drums come out, nice ambience, meditate, coming back into the breathwork, peak back in. And I like that.
Back.
It's like when I'm holding the breath, I don't want to have the pulse anymore.
Yeah.
And when I'm breathing, I want that pulse. So it's like
cool stuff,
music,
people.
it's really cool because breathwork music is very different than meditation music, right? Very different dynamic. If anything, breathwork I have found is the closest to film scores. Because I have to go with and I have to go into a grid of time. So they're like, this is a 30-second hold. Well, I got to musically grid out now my session so that I'm hitting.
So that you get a 30-second.
Which for those writers, just a quick tip, 60 BPM or 120 BPM.
Yep.
Perfect grid for that.
That works great.
Yeah.
We can get wonky with it.
Yeah. So just, easy wise.
Start for those of you writing in 5/4.
Don't do that to yourself.
Or 7/8 or whatever.
Yeah.
Culturally though, because there are cultures where 4/4 is kind of like, we don't use that anymore. It's pretty boring.
True. Would Indian culture be there? I think some of their music.
I would go with Asians. African certainly has such an incredibly rhythmically dense. I don't know. It's like saying there's no more. We're not going to use just those 12 notes anymore. Now we're going to use 64 of them, right?
Right. Like in the Indian scales, I know classical Indian music.
Classical Polynesia is a place where you can find a lot of those, like 13 against 5, or weird non-even meters that get played together, and they sound awesome, because they overlap in such cool ways.
I wonder what's going on with their brains there. So much to figure out. Anyone listening, watching, if you're in the sciences or have ability to run some experiments, please. We need more. We need more in the sound spectrum, the music spectrum.
Especially if you have research funding, because we'd love to know the answers to some of these questions, right? That we can ask as musicians and just play around with, but that really deserve to have some science behind them, especially in healthcare situations where, the instruments are right there waiting to be used. He said, both medically and musically.
Exactly. So let us know, guys, in the comments, like, what do you think about our episode today? What do you think about the power of 40 hertz and music in general, bringing people, back to their memories, perhaps out of a coma, or just how can we start to implement sound and music in hospitals and places of healing where it really can work, let's say, in conjunction and in harmony with whatever other medical procedures are going on. It's sound, it's music. I don't think it's going to interfere. Like if people freak out, oh, we're mixing this with that. I'm like, well, we're a whole other element, man. We're in sound, we're in frequency. I don't think it's going to mix bad with your painkillers.
There haven't been any too many negative side effects from music.
Let's take the plunge. Let's see what happens.
Seriously. Thanks everybody for hanging out with Chris and me today, and we'll see you on the next episode of Discussions of Music, Healing, and Consciousness. Does that sound real like, radio like?
It's a great one. Discussions of Music, Healing, and Consciousness. Yeah. Thanks again, everyone. We love you. We appreciate you. And we will see you on the next episode. And thank you, Bill, for bringing me in today, and another awesome recording. It's always a pleasure to be here. So we love you guys.
Brother.
We'll see you.
Love you too. Be well.
Be well.